Hello guys, welcome to Target Tech Solution. Now if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe and don't forget to hit the notification bell for more content from us.
Good afternoon, class. I trust we are all fine and doing well. It's been a long while. I was trying to figure some few things out, but I think now, unlike the video, we'll just go by the audio because I'm still having challenges loading up videos. So, for today's lecture, we are going to talk about African moral values and the impact it has on our lives today. So we'll look at moral values in Africa. We'll look at some proverbs and taboos and how all these translate into our lives today. Because it's an audio, I'll be moving by the lecture slide numbers. So for each slide I move on, I'll mention the number so that when you are listening, you can also tag along. So on slide 2, we are looking at objectives for this study, and we are expecting that at the end of the lecture, we should be able to summarize the concepts of moral values in Africa and explain them. We should be able to explain how morality was found in the African society. We should be able to outline and differentiate moral conducts in African societies that are considered to be good and those that are considered to be bad. We should be able to justify why moral values are an ethic of society and individual responsibilities. We should be able to identify some African proverbs and taboos in relation to moral matters. And then we should be able to also explain reasons for falling standards of moral values in the African society and be able to propose solutions that can help address the problem. So on slide 3, we move on to look at the concept of moral values, and we say that the moral code of every society is that which deals with the ideas of what is wrong, what is good, or what is right and good, or what is wrong and bad. So in every society, there are spelled rules and regulations sort of what is right and wrong and what is good and bad. So every group of people who call themselves a society have their own set standards about things that is done there and things that are not done there. So if you come to the Akan tradition, there are certain things that you may do there which may be deemed as okay or good. When you go to the northern region or the northern society, it may be a taboo. So morals are society specific, and every society has its code of what he or they deem right or wrong. According to Jeche, he explains that moral values are forms or patterns of conduct that are considered most worthwhile and thus cherished by a society. So any act of conduct that a society cherishes as part of us is something we refer to as morals. So I went to do work at the northern region recently, and I realized that in the north, as a young lady, once your husband marries you, you are supposed to move from your father's house as the lady, not to your husband's house, but to join your husband. You know, they live in the extended family system. So every household live together in one compound. So you move to join your husband and your in-laws in their household. And the moral thing I'm going to talk about here is that once this young lady moves there, you are expected as the wife of the home to help in every work that goes on in the house. So you go to farm, you come home, you cook, you do everything that a woman is supposed to do. And the key word here that I was told is, so long as you are hardworking and assist your mother-in-law or work for your mother-in-law, you will not have any problem. But if you go in as a lazy wife who will not lift a finger, then you will always have issues with your mother-in-law. But I believe that in other societies, when you get married, this will not be the situation. You won't have to move to your husband's house, your husband's household's house. So this is a moral pattern typical to our people in the north. There are different patterns or actions that are peculiar to different sets of the society that identifies each society. So the moral values of various African societies are different. Moral values and standards are different from one place to the other. So in the north, when you are greeting an elderly person, you must go all low. You must bow. A lady, you must bow with your knees almost touching the ground. The gentlemen do same. But in the Akan society, you really don't have to bow. You just have to greet politely and you are fine. In our from our neighbor Nigerians, when a man is going to marry a woman, there is a stage during the engagement that the man and his people are supposed to lie prostrate in front of their in-laws. And that is the moral standard there. No respectful Nigerian man will go marry without lying prostrate before their in-laws. But when you come to Ghana, during engagement, we don't lie down prostrate. We don't lie with our bellies flat. And that is the moral standard there. So morals are different from one society to the other. Morality, again, we say, is a set of rules or principles with an intention to guide the conduct of people in a society. So by moral standards, we try, or it is set up to be able to guide the standard of behavior. So if in a society we know that this is right and this is wrong, everybody knows the right thing to do. Everybody knows the things that are wrong to do. So we are guided by these principles. So we know that in this society, every Tuesday is communal labor day. You know, if you do not go, you'll be judged as a bad person, as an irresponsible person. So by that standard, on every Tuesday, every member of the community, you leave your farm, you leave your fishing net, you leave whatever you are doing, and join the entire community at whichever grounds you have agreed on to work. You know that it is morally wrong for a brother and a sister to have sex together, and it guides you. So if you are proposing love to anybody, you don't go proposing love to your sister. You know that it is wrong. It is a taboo. We will come to taboos. It is a taboo to have sex in the forest. So no matter the kind of activities you engage in as two people who are dating, you don't go having sex in the forest. You control yourself. It sets as a guide and a boundary for self-control for you too. So moral standards guides the conduct of people in a society. In the Akan society, you know, it is a moral ground that every man takes care of the nephews and the nieces in the family. So you do not joke. Any pure Asante man does not joke with his or her or her sis in their family, and it guides your conduct. So it helps you to help other members of the society. So it is not all about you, your wife, and your children, but by the moral standard, you extend a helping hand to other members of the society. So this is how morals guides the behaviors and guides the conduct of members of a society. So in Africa, we say that moral values are not only principles of behavior, but also they are goals of social and individual action. So they are set as goals that individuals are supposed to abide by. So it is not just to guide your behavior, but it helps the society to achieve a certain goal, to achieve a certain action. So if we have a communal labor day in our society, for instance, it sets a goal for us. So we know that in this community, every Wednesday or Tuesday or whatever, we go to the communal grounds and we work. So the goal here is to ensure that in this community there is cleanliness, because we always meet, we read, we sweep the gutters, we do this. So that is the goal of the society. In this society, on this particular day, we don't go to the sea or we don't go to this river. And it is a way of giving the sea or the river a fallow time to rest from the harvest or actions of man. So these are some of the goals that set up, or goals that are intended for moral values in a society. We continue the concept of moral values on slide 4. So we continue to say that as a concept, moral value is an ethic of responsibility. So every individual in a society or a community has a responsibility of abiding by the set a moral standard or value by that community. And we say that every moral value has a humanistic basis. So moral values by themselves, moral values are not set just in abstract, but they come up to serve humanity. So for instance, with this communal labor I'm talking about like this, it helps you to keep your society and the community clean. The matrilineal inheritance system of the Akan community help members of the family to extend a helping hand to each other. So we see that the moral values are humanistic. They are targeted at human benefit. They bring human benefit to the individual and to the society. In Africa, individuals feeling responsible towards each other is part of the whole process of socialization. So once you are born and we start socializing, this is your cousin, this is your auntie, this is that. You are being socialized into that act of responsibility. So in the olden days, or when I was a child, if you are attending school with your cousin, you don't call yourselves cousin, you call yourselves brothers and sisters, and you are responsible for each other. In the olden days, when we used to live and abide strictly by the extended family system, one woman's child is the child of all the women in the household. So if you are not there, any other person can take care of your child freely. And that is the socialization process. We grow into it. You grow and know that you are supposed to do this and do that and do that for your brother, your sister, and the other members of your family. Moral value is an ethic of responsibility and not individual rights. And this is inculcated from the onset. So we abide by moral standards as a form of responsibility, but you do not demand it from an individual, in the sense that we don't demand it in the sense that if someone does not abide by such ethics of responsibilities, you cannot send the person to court. For instance, a daughter or a wife can send her husband to court to say that he is not providing money for the upkeep of the children. However, a niece or a nephew cannot send their uncle to court that you are not taking care of us. He's only acting or giving us an act of responsibility, but not as a demand. If someone does not partake in communal labor, you can't take the person to the judicial court and say that this person didn't come for communal labor, so we want the court to charge and imprison the person. It is an act of responsibility. So until the society themselves have set rules and regulations that, okay, fine, if you don't come for communal labor, we will do A, B, C, D. That is just the limits that you can have. You know the funeral donation system that we have in our Ghanaian setting. Now, in most communities, especially in the villages, in my village, there is a book. So if anybody dies in the community, as a sense of responsibility, every member of each household is supposed to contribute an amount of money. It is not much, I think 1 cedi or 2 cedi or something, contribute towards the funeral preparation of the other family. Now, if for any reason one person decides that this thing, I won't do it, the community or the chief cannot send that person to court to say that he's refusing to pay contributions to funerals. Rather, all that they can do it, if it is your turn, nobody will do it for you. That is the limit or the extent that anybody can go. So moral values or moral acts are a sense of responsibility, but not individual rights. You cannot demand it as your right from another person. Okay, so on slide 5, we look at good and bad morals and say that in Africa we place very high value on good character. Character is everything in Africa. So whatever you do, you are guided by character. And in being guided, you are guided by what society is thinking about the character that you are exhibiting. There is a proverb in Yoruba that says, good character is a person's guard, and to possess virtue is better than gold. So in other words, it's better to have good character and show out good character than to have riches. So by explanation with this one, you realize that there may be certain people in our societies who may be very rich, they have all the money, but because society may not trust the source of their money, or because society may doubt the source of their money, unlike now, it is now that our moral standards are falling, so we don't hold those things in high values. But in the olden days, you may have a room full of money, but if the society thinks that this money has dubious sources, your money and yourself will not be respected. Nobody will give you regard. So in such instances, a poor person may like himself to be poor than to engage himself in activities, dubious activities, that will bring him riches but doubtful behavior in the eyes of the society. An action or a habit or pattern of behavior is considered good only if it promotes human and social well-being, societal well-being. So your character can only be defined as good. Your character is not defined by the riches that you have, but rather by the acts that you show to the society, by the judgments that society gives your behavior. So you may be rich, you have built mansions in your hometown and all. Nobody cares about your mansions. But if you are able to do acts that serve well to the society, then you will be deemed as a good character. I mean, if you have money, you are spending your money alone. But once your actions extend to the other members of the society, then you will be deemed as person of good character. It is not just money, but sometimes our individual actions. I have somebody who lives in my community. This man knows the inflows and outflows of every household. He knows the horn of every household. So if you come and you blow your horn, he knows this car, it is Mr. So and so who has come. It is so and so who has come. Let this man see a stranger standing in front of anybody's gate. He will come and question the person. Are you looking for somebody? What are you doing standing in front of this person's gate? And this man is respected for that in this community. So it has become a norm. If anybody is traveling in the neighborhood, you will go and tell this man, oh, Mr. So and so, I'm traveling, I'll be away, I'll come back at this time. Because you know that this man is of very good character in this respect. There is another person in the community whom you will always find trying to mend the road, mending the gutter, every work that needs to be done in the community. Consult him and he will see to it that the work is done. And that is what society deems as good character. your actions should serve other members of the society. And so at the other side, negative behavior are behaviors that does not augur well for the well-being of other members of the society. So you think that you have your money, you can acquire land. So land that is supposed to be for waterways, you build your mansion on this land where water is supposed to flow to enable drainage systems to work well. You build your mansion there. Even though you have your money, nobody will regard that as, hey, this man has money, he has built a house. They will come after you for you to pull down the house, because it is to the detriment of the society. If you think you have built your house and then you channel your drainage system into the main road or the gutters, you channel your sewage system into the gutters, everybody will come after you. So you may have your money, you have channeled your gutters and all, but because you are not doing the right thing, because your actions does not augur well for the society, everyone will come after you to change from that behavior or to desist from it. Now, continuing on slide 6, we give some examples of good moral values to the society, and we talk about humility, we talk about being fair, having high integrity or honesty, being patient, showing kindness, showing acts of gratitude, hospitality, self-discipline, being sober, being generous, contentment, perseverance, trust, being trustworthy, truthfulness, and respect for the elderly, being chaste before marriage, and then being faithful to your spouses. These are all actions that society deems as good morals, and so individuals are supposed to abide by. Because of time, I will not go into them. I believe we all understand when we meet and doing our Zoom for discussion. If there is any one of them that we don't understand, we'll talk about it. And on the other hand, actions that we consider as bad behavior are backbiting, being selfish, lying, stealing, engaging in adultery, rape, incest, murder, suicide, enviness, and then wickedness. So these are actions actions that are considered to be bad, and so every individual would not want to be associated with these actions. On slide 7, we try to look at how morality was founded in Africa. And we say that moral values of Africa, to a large extent, rests on the character or conscience of people. So moral values are built on people's consciences. We didn't have a committee that was assigned to try to bring up certain behaviors that will be deemed as good or bad. Rather, moral values were built on people's conscience of what they deemed as right or wrong. It is also derived from people's experiences as expressed in Proverbs. So per your experience, if you look at a certain behavior and realize that, oh, this behavior is good, it yielded this result, you had a good experience from such a behavior, it is slated or informally, it becomes part of the moral standard of a particular society. And as I have explained earlier, our moral values have a social and humanistic basis. So every good moral has a humanistic basis. It is linked to bringing good to the individual, doing good to the individual. And then we also say that to some extent it is derived from our traditional religion. So our traditional religious system yields or builds up certain moral standards that each community or society is supposed to abide by. So if you go to certain communities, the particular God that they serve there has its own taboos that you follow. This God, this river God, does not want anybody to come to it on this particular day, and it becomes a moral value that on Tuesdays we don't go to this river, on this day we don't go to this forest. So our traditional religion also brings up some of our moral standards and our moral values. So on slide 8, we look at our gods, smaller gods, God, ancestors, and moral issues. So we say that in Africa, God is essentially regarded as the overlord of society and the final authority in all matters. So even though there are different religions in Africa, we have our traditional religion with different gods, they all direct their actions to the supreme God and see the supreme God as the final authority in every matter, and he's acknowledged as the final guardian in all moral codes of law and order. Therefore, there is the need for mankind to practice and live a good moral life, because you must live a life that pleases this God who is the supreme Lord of every matter in the society. We also have our ancestors, and we believe that they have keen interest in moral order, and they punish those who break the custom or people who break norms or morals. So if you break the laws, your ancestors is believed will come after you in whatever punishment or form. Offenders of moral values are either met with misfortunes, barrenness, illness, or death. So in our societies, we believe that if you don't abide by moral standards, if you commit certain taboos, you'll be cursed with all forms of misfortunes. You'll be cursed with, as example, barrenness. You'll be cursed with certain illnesses. When certain illnesses come upon some individuals, we believe it is a curse from the ancestors, or you could even die from certain acts that you performed. On the other hand, if you obey the laws and do what is right, you'll be blessed with things such as plenty of harvest, good health, harm will be warded off from you, and then your children will also be blessed. And these are blessings that will come from the ancestors. So you realize that apart from God being the overlord, we have our ancestors who are also very keen and very interested in individuals exhibiting good morals and good character in the society. The gods, which is smaller gods, also play a vital role on slide 9. They play a vital role in controlling morality in our societies, and they have their taboos which their devotees are expected to uphold. So for every god that you worship, they have certain taboos that you must abide by, and if you abide by them, you are safe. But once you don't abide and you break these taboos, you will be punished by these gods. So every god have their taboo, and once you worship the god, you must abide by these taboos. They demand worship and obedience from their people, and failing to do this calls for punishment such as severe illness, poverty, and atrocities, and sometimes even death. On slide 10, we look at Proverbs, taboos, and moral implications. So we say that Proverbs are used in the African society to express beliefs and feelings and moral values. So we have Proverbs as short and pithy sayings, that is small sayings, that are very popular devices used to state figuratively certain general truths about life. So Proverbs may be made up of just 2 or 3 words, but they communicate so much to tell about how life is supposed to be. So if you say a good name is better than riches, these are just how many words? Good name is better than riches. Just 6 words. But it has so much meaning. If you are explaining it, you go on and on and on to tell about how it is important for you to exhibit good character than chase after riches in dubious means. In Akan, if we say that sutra ben ojene preko, sutra ben ojene preko, just about 3 or 4 letter words, but it is so loaded to mean that if you have a responsibility, do it now and get it done with, because whether you like it or not, it is your responsibility. You will do it. It is your obligation for you that waiting for you. So just do it and be free. So proverbs are usually short, but they are figurative sayings that tells about good character that needs to be emulated. Okay. So on slide 7, we move on to look at some examples of proverbs. And one says, it's one's deeds that are counted, not your years. It is one's deeds that are counted, not your years. I'll leave this for you when we meet. I want you to explain the proverbs to me. It is usually the insect in your cloth that bites you. Goodness sells itself, but badness walks around. Go through this. When we meet on our Zoom class, we'll try to go through the meanings of these proverbs. Okay. So we look at more on slide 12. And we say that one's deeds are counted. Okay, so I think it's a repetition of the previous slide. Now on slide 15, we move on to look at taboos. And we say that taboos are forbidden actions, conduct or behaviors of a particular group of people in a given situation that are outlined by the gods. So now the key word here is that taboos are outlined by the gods, and they are forbidden actions. You are not even supposed to do them in the first place. So taboos are forbidden, and they are actions that are outlined by the God of what a society can do and what you are not supposed to do. The gods have their own individual taboos which their devotees are expected to uphold. So every god has their taboo, and their devotees or those who worship them are expected to abide by these taboos. And once an action or a conduct is listed as a taboo, people attach a lot of seriousness to it, because there are consequences that are attached to these taboos. On slide 14, we look at current trends in moral standards and say that in modern times, we seem to have compromised the ideas of what is right and wrong. Unlike the past, the customs and traditional way of life were sanctioned by the gods and not the law enforcement agencies. So now we are saying that in the past, we used to abide by our moral standards in the society. So in every society, we know what is right and wrong. If you indulge in what is wrong, you know the punishment that comes with it. So in our traditional rulership system in the olden days, on a particular day of the week, we have the tankers coming round. If the tankers comes round and your home is dirty, your mortar is dirty, your pestle is dirty, your compound is not swept, you know there is going to be lampo for you. You are going to be sent to the traditional home, the chief palace, and your punishment is going to be outlined for you in the chief's palace. So because of that, every member of the household makes sure that their surroundings are clean. But now what do we see? Now we don't have the tanker system anymore. So people are comfortable to throw rubbish anywhere, at any time, and nobody can question them. Nobody questions anybody for throwing rubbish around, for defecating in the communities, for defecating in our river systems. This is because we have embedded this in our law enforcement agencies. And the question we want to ask ourselves is, to what extent are our law enforcement agencies working on this and being able to meet these sanctions? If you look at rape, for instance, in the olden days, if you raped somebody and you were caught, the traditional system takes up the matter, and you know the consequences that were coming up with it. you may even be banished from the society. But now we say the law enforcement agencies have taken it up. So if there is a rape case, take it to court. Imagine the number of years that an individual will have to go in and out of court. Your lawyers are taking money for every court hearing that they have to go to. And for 2, 3 years, for 5 years, you'll be going up and down on one rape case. And the perpetrator may be walking around freely. So we see that the pros and cons that the law enforcement system is bringing or has brought to our society. By that also, do we say that we should wipe away our law enforcement system and go back fully to the traditional system? This is a debate we'll hold or a discussion we'll hold when we meet during our Zoom class. Should we leave our law enforcement systems entirely and go back to the traditional systems? Okay, so for example, we are saying that while those who violate traditional norms and moral values are met with atrocities such as illness, others who do what is right are blessed with good harvest, blessed with having more children, good health, and more blessings. So you realize that in our traditional system, because of our traditional religious system, it is all well spelled out. So if you do what is right and what is wrong, you know the punishment or the blessings that awaits you. On slide 15, we look at how we can maintain our moral values in Africa, and we say that it is important to inculcate into people the moral values of Africa because it goes a long way to prevent deviant behavior. So because our moral values are targeted at ensuring humanistic well-being or social well-being, it is important for us as individuals to socialize members of our society into our good values or our moral values, so that we have good standards in our society. In the family, how do we maintain or promote moral values in our family? People must be taught about what is right and wrong. An example is teaching people to obey and respect elders. So we have responsibilities as family members to teach the younger ones what is good and right, what is right and wrong in our societies. So you teach them how to greet the elderly. We need to teach how to show respect to the elderly. As peer groups, we have a responsibility to draw each other's attention to moral standards that are falling in form of our dressings, holding up our traditional moral codes, and even moral codes that govern behavior of members of our society. So as peers in the workplaces, this debate going on about this LGBTQI and all that, as peer groups, what are our stance? We have responsibilities as individuals to draw our attention. When we meet in our Zoom class, we will have a discussion about this. Is it part of our morals? Do we go by it as human right order, or do we go by our moral standards that speaks abominably against this LGBTQI issues? Now, as educational institutions, we must establish standards that they expect from their students. So if you look at Valley View University, for instance, they expect that if you attend this university, then don't put on earring. That, by their religion, is their moral standard. So no matter which religion you are coming from, if you want to be a part of us, then once you enter our walls, don't wear earrings. In our schools, if you want to come to this school, then by 8 a.m. you should be in school. You should have brought your child or your daughter in school. And that, in a way, is teaching children how to be punctual, teaching them a sense of responsibility and punctuality. So that is how our educational systems can also set up certain rules and regulations to guide the conduct of behavior within that system. Okay, so on slide 16, we see that government institutions also have a role to play in enforcing our moral standards and social norms. They need to form or set up legislation and enforcement bodies that will instill our moral standards. Now, the question we want to ask is, to what extent are these enforcement agencies able to enforce these moral standards? Religious bodies also have a role to play by establishing and teaching on principles that lead to good moral behavior. So as religious bodies, when we meet, apart from teaching the gospel, we must also propagate and teach people, explain to people the importance of leading or indulging in good behavior rather than individualistic, selfish acts and behaviors. Employers to a state also have a role to play. And we ask that, to what extent can these employers to the state ensure good morals and expect their employees to abide by them? So they set up rules and regulations, they set up standards that employees are supposed to follow, and indirectly it is the inhibiting of good morals that we are teaching or propagating to the members of a society. Now, what is the essence of good moral practice? I think we have discussed this through the lecture, and we say that it contributes towards the keeping of our society together. So when we abide by good morals, because it has humanistic value, because it is targeted towards social or societal well-being, it keeps the society together. It helps individuals to show kindness and generosity towards one another. So for the matrilineal system of inheritance of the account system I was talking about, for instance, when one person is rich, the money is not limited to the individual alone, but rather other members of the family also get to benefit from it, be it their nephews and their nieces. So we benefit from one another as a form of moral standard. It also guides or serves as guided rules and conduct that helps to shape the life of people in a society. So you grew up in a society and you know that throwing of rubbish is forbidden. So you grow up and you know that it is unethical, it is against good morals to throw rubbish around. It promotes good and harmonious relationship between many members of a society, to put it. So because moral standards are targeted at ensuring good to the general well-being of members of a society, it promotes harmonious relationships. And then lastly, it helps people in a society to do good and avoid evil, because you want to avoid the consequences that comes up with doing or not abiding by good morals. So this brings us to the end of this lecture. Listen to it, put down your questions and suggestions, and when we meet in our Zoom class, probably next week, when we meet on Zoom, we will discuss certain aspects of it. We will look at the meanings of Proverbs, the meanings that the Proverbs gives to us. We will look at how our society is responding to this issue of LGBTQI, and look at other issues that you may come up with. Thank you and have a blessed week.